Hello everyone. Welcome everyone to the channel's Strange Night Podcast. Story 1. The Meat Grinder of the Butcher. Joe Ball. In the criminal history of Texas, USA, there are names faded by time. But the story of Joe Ball and his sociable inn in Elmendorf remains a paralyzing nightmare. A dark chapter that locals only dare to mention with utter loathing. Joe Ball did not possess the face of a monster. He was a brooding, silent man who had served in World War I and returned with a warped psyche. In the 1930s, just as the Prohibition era ended, Joe opened a small tavern. To attract customers in that arid, desolate land, he built a massive concrete pond behind the inn and filled it with 5 giant alligators. Visitors to the sociable inn came not just for the liquor, but to witness Joe's macabre entertainment. He would toss live dogs, cats, and even pigs into the pond to be torn apart by the reptilian beasts, all while a crowd of drunken patrons cheered. Joe Ball would stand there, a cold smile in his eyes, watching the monsters devour their helpless prey. The anomaly began when the young women serving at Joe's tavern started vanishing one by one. First was Minnie Gothard, his longtime mistress and right-hand woman. Then came Dolores Goodwin, another beautiful girl, followed by Hazel Brown. When the families of these women came looking for them, Joe would nonchalantly reply that they had simply quit and left town in search of a better life. In a volatile society, that answer seemed plausible at first. But when the number of missing women reached over a dozen, including his own wives, the police could no longer sit idle. One day in September 1938, as detectives raided the tavern, they didn't find the girls, but they encountered an indescribable stench emanating from a large meat grinder in the kitchen and a rotting wooden barrel behind the house. There they discovered small bone fragments and scraps of human skin. One of Joe's handymen, consumed by terror, collapsed to his knees and confessed the most horrific truth. Joe Ball wasn't just feeding animals to his alligators. Whenever Joe grew tired of a woman, or when they learned too much about his illegal dealings, he would take them behind the tavern. He murdered them with a single gunshot to the head, then used his butcher skills to dismember the victims on a wooden table. Joe divided the remains. Some parts were fed into the meat grinder to erase any recognizable features, while the rest were thrown directly into the pond. Those monsters became the perfect evidence disposal machines, swallowing the flesh and bone of the victims whole, leaving nothing behind. As police closed in to handcuff Joe, he asked for one last cigarette. But instead of reaching for a smoke, Joe pulled a pistol from under the bar and committed suicide on the spot, taking the secret of his true victim count to the grave. Following Joe's death, the police drained the murky, sledge-filled pond. What they found at the bottom made even the most hardened officer retch. Countless rings, necklaces, buttons, and jagged fragments of human bone that the alligators had chewed but couldn't fully digest. It was then realized that for years, the patrons of the sociable inn had been drinking and laughing just steps away from where barbaric massacres took place. The story of Joe Ball is not just about a serial killer. It is a warning of the absolute cruelty of man when masked by a twisted form of entertainment. To this day, the people of Elmendorf still pass down stories of the alligators' low growls in the night, an echo from hell of the souls that vanished into nothingness inside the meat grinder of the butcher Joe Ball. Story 2. Children of Smoke and Ash. The mystery of the Solder family. Christmas Eve of 1945 in Fayetteville, West Virginia, was a cold but warm night inside the Sodder household, until the clock struck past midnight and the nightmare began. George and Jenny Sodder, along with 9 of their children, were deep in sleep when a fire suddenly erupted, devouring their home in just 45 minutes. In the chaos of smoke and flames, George, Jenny, and 4 of the children managed to escape. The 5 children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, remained trapped in the collapsing attic floor. In a desperate attempt to save his children, George Sodder ran outside to grab his tall ladder, but it had mysteriously vanished from its usual spot. He tried to drive his 2 trucks close to the attic window to climb up, but both vehicles, which had been working perfectly during the day, suddenly refused to start, and the fire department finally arrived the next morning in a pile of cold ash. But this was a moment when grief turned into an unexplainable horror. After hours of sifting through the debris, firefighters found no bones, no traces of body parts, and no human remains. According to scientific theory, human bones do not completely disappear in an ordinary house fire lasting less than an hour. The 5 Sodder children seemed to have vanished into thin air. As they investigated further, George and Jenny realized the fire was not a random electrical accident, as officials initially concluded. Months before the fire, a stranger had appeared in their home, pointing at the fuse box and warning that it would cause a fire someday, even though an electrician had checked and confirmed that everything was safe. Another man had threatened George that his house would be burned down and his children taken away because of George's criticisms of dictator Mussolini within the local Italian community. On the night of the fire, the surviving children recalled hearing something heavy hit the roof with a loud bang. George later discovered a dead pineapple hand grenade in a nearby brush. For decades afterward, the Sodders refused to believe their children were dead. They erected a massive billboard on the side of their former home, featuring photos of the 5 children and offering a large reward for any information. Reports of sightings of the 5 children in other states, traveling with strangers in trucks, staying at hotels, boarding constantly, but the police ignored the law. The strangeness peaked in 1968 when Jenny Sodder received a letter with a no-return address. Inside was a photograph of a young man with a striking resemblance to the missing face. Back, a handwritten note read, "Louis Sodder, I love Brother Frankie." The death or disappearance of the Sodder children remains one of the greatest mysteries in American history. One theory suggests they were kidnapped by a criminal organization linked to an Italian secret society, and the fire was merely a stage play to cover their tracks. The Sodders passed away without ever receiving a final answer. The weathered billboard by the roadside has long since been taken down. But the question remains, did the fire that Christmas Eve consume 5 lives? Or was it just a smokescreen for a mass kidnapping of innocent children? To this day, the mystery of the Sodder children remains a silent scream in history, reminding us that sometimes the truth is more brutal and unbelievable than the most terrifying fiction. Story 3. The Smile in the Cold. The Death of Lord's Aguiar. On a sweltering afternoon in 1999, within a poor neighborhood in Brazil, the air inside the Aguiar family home suddenly grew heavy with a peculiar stench. It did not smell of spoiled food. It carried the pungent, cloying scent of decomposing death, seeping through every crevice of the small kitchen. After days of searching for the source, the father's attention turned to the old refrigerator that hung steadily in the corner of the room. When the refrigerator door was pulled open, a horrific sight met their eyes, freezing everyone in the room. Inside the narrow compartment, the body of their young daughter, Lourdes Aguiar, who had vanished mysteriously 3 days prior, was brutally crammed. She was not lying straight. Her body was contorted into unnatural positions to fit within the cramped space. But what made the hearts of those watching stop was not the presence of death itself, but the expression on Lourdes' face, a radiant, intact, and blissful smile, standing in stark contrast to the horror of her circumstances. Brazilian police immediately cordoned off the scene and began an investigation riddled with absurdities. First, the refrigerator showed no signs of forced entry. It was locked tight with an external padlock, a family habit to save electricity. The key was still in the father's pocket. Second, the interior of the fridge was completely clean. There were no signs of a struggle, no scratch marks in the inner plastic lining, and no fingerprints from any stranger. The autopsy revealed that Lourdes died of asphyxiation and hypothermia, but her stomach was found filled with tiny scraps of paper torn from a fashion magazine. The biggest question looming over the case was, how could a grown girl fit herself into such a small refrigerator, arrange her body in that position, and most importantly, lock the door from the outside? Investigators tested many theories, from a highly skilled kidnapper to a cult of cults. However, no witnesses saw any strangers enter the house, which was almost always occupied. Neighbors only recalled that on the night she vanished, they heard soft singing coming from the Aguiar kitchen, a gentle but soulless melody. Some paranormal theories suggested that Lourdes might have fallen into an extreme state of schizophrenia or been lured by an unseen force. The act of eating magazine scraps suggested the bizarre behavior associated with Pica syndrome, but the smile on her lips hinted at a terrifying sense of liberation. Some believe she found a portal to another reality within that dark, frozen space. And that smile was proof she had seen something out of this world before her final breath faded away. The case of the girl in the refrigerator became a dark, unsolved file in the records of the Brazilian police. No one was ever charged, and no alibis were ever broken. The refrigerator was eventually destroyed. The story of Lourdes Aguiar remains a reminder of the dark corners of the human mind and the mysteries that even modern forensic science cannot conquer. Lourdes' smile in the cold continues to haunt anyone who hears her story, making them shiver whenever they hear the hum of a refrigerator in the dead of night. Story 4. Beating within the iron cage. The ghosts of the Chernobyl 2 radar station. Hidden deep within the dense forests of Ukraine, shrouded by the shadow of the 1986 nuclear disaster, stands a colossal steel structure nearly 150 meters high and half a kilometer long. This is Duga, also known as the Russian woodpecker, a top-secret Soviet over-the-horizon radar system. But behind the rusted girders and tangled wire mesh of the Chernobyl 2 station lie phenomena that mainstream science can never explain. At the height of the Cold War, Duga emitted radio signals so powerful they disrupted broadcasts worldwide, creating a repetitive tap-tap-tap sound like a woodpecker. After the explosion at reactor number 4, the area was abandoned in a frantic hurry, leaving behind a military city complete with amenities but void of human warmth. Urban explorers and border guards who occasionally risk entering the exclusion zone report that Duga is not truly dead. In the underground bunkers tens of meters deep, where the massive computer systems reside, they still hear the severed decades ago. Even more terrifying are reports of sounds of the soul. Ukrainian border guards say that on fog-laden nights, as the wind whistles through the steel beams creating bone-chilling howls, they hear the rhythmic sound of marching boots on iron stairs hundreds of feet up. When they shine their lights upward, no one is there. Yet the sound of metal straining under the weight of human footsteps continues until it vanishes into the void. Many believe that the military officers and technicians who died of radiation sickness following the disaster are still standing their eternal watch. They are imprisoned within this steel structure by the immense electromagnetic energy of the station once accumulated. A bizarre event was reported in 2010 by a group of amateur explorers. When they brought sensitive recording equipment into the central control room, they captured a conversation in Old Russian. The voice sounded panicked, requesting confirmation for a firing order, and repeatedly crying out, "The blue light is coming. Why are we not allowed to leave?" The chilling part is that blue light was exactly how witnesses described the exposed reactor core on the night of April 26, 1986. It is as if Duga's massive metal lattice acted as a gargantuan cosmic tape recorder, capturing the final moments of absolute terror and replaying them for anyone who accidentally wanders into its coverage zone. Today, Duga stands like a giant skeleton in the dead zone. Ghost hunters claim that if you stand at the foot of the radar tower at sunset, you'll feel a heavy pressure on your chest, and the tap-tap of the woodpecker is no longer a radio wave. It is the heartbeat of a massive entity of iron and steel, hungry for memories. Chernobyl, too, is not just a relic of a war that never happened. It is a mechanical graveyard where time is warped and souls are trapped between endless radio frequencies, forever unable to find their way. Story 6. Borrowed Identity. The Mystery of the Istal. On November 29, 1970, Istal Valley of Poland, a remote area known to locals as Death Valley due to past hiking incidents. A father and his 2 young daughters were trekking when they stumbled upon a horrific sight. Wedged between rugged rocks lay the charred body of a woman, frozen in a position as if she had been trying to shield her face from the flames. But the horror did not lie solely in her death. It lay in what the police discovered scattered around her. At the scene, every single label on the woman's clothing had been meticulously cut away. Her water bottles and personal items had their brands scraped off to prevent any tracing of her origin. Police located 2 of her suitcases at the Bergen railway station. They hoped for answers, but the discovery only deepened the deadlock. Inside were 9 forged passports with various identities, several wigs, non-prescription glasses, and a notebook filled with cryptic codes of numbers and letters. The autopsy revealed a grin at the end. She had died from a combination of carbon monoxide poisoning and ingesting at least 50 sleeping pills before being burned alive. The investigation expanded across Europe, revealing a bizarre odyssey. This woman had moved constantly between major cities like Paris, London, Berlin, Oslo, under aliases such as Genevieve Thomas or Claudia Tielt. At every hotel, she claimed a different nationality and always requested a room with a view of the street. Hotel staff described her as an elegant woman who spoke multiple languages, yet she carried an aura of extreme anxiety and frequently changed her wigs to alter her appearance throughout the day. The most chilling find was the coded notebook. Years later, Norwegian cryptographers partially cracked the cipher, discovering it was a detailed log of her movements, which coincided perfectly with secret Norwegian military missile tests taking place along the coast at that time. Every piece of evidence pointed to the Isdal woman being a high-level Cold War spy. However, no country ever stepped forward to claim her as their citizen or agent. The mystery grew even darker when a witness emerged years later, recalling that he had seen the woman walking into the valley a few days before her death. She was accompanied by two men in long, dark coats who had the appearance of military agents. When she saw the witness, she appeared to open her mouth as if to speak, her face filled with absolute terror, before she was led away by the two men into the shadows of the valley. After more than 50 years, the true identity of the Isdal remains vast. She was buried in a zinc coffin to prevent decomposition, in the hope that one day DNA technology might find her family. To this day, she lies there, a nameless soul, a ghost of a silent war, reminding us that some lives exist only as shadows and end in a brutal fire in the heart of a frozen, desolate valley. Story 7 cries beneath the earth, the nameless graves of St. John. Over the past decades, Canada has been forced to confront one of the most brutal truths in its history: the system of residential schools and orphanages for Indigenous children, where the goal of education was merely a front for a campaign of cultural and human erasure. But at St. John's Orphanage, what lies deep beneath the green grass of the playground is not just sad memories, but a horrific crime buried for nearly a century. The story began to turn chilling when survivors, now elderly, started recounting tales of windowless rooms and the sound of truck engines idling late at night next to freshly dug pits. They spoke of their little friends, children who were holding hands one day and vanished without explanation the next. The nuns and administrators simply claimed they had been transferred or had run away, but no one believed them, for the pungent smell of lime powder and the sight of black-robed figures working silently under the moonlight told a different story. In the 1990s and peaking in 2021, ground-penetrating radar surveys shocked the world. Beneath the grounds of St. John's and surrounding areas, researchers discovered hundreds, then thousands of signals indicating unmarked graves. These were not official cemeteries with headstones or memorials. They were mass burial sites where tiny bodies were laid side by side in absolute cold and silence. More horrifyingly, as preliminary excavations were conducted, scientists found undeniable marks on the remains. Many children's skulls showed signs of blunt force trauma, and some limb bones had strange, small-bore holes. This gave rise to a dark hypothesis. St. John's was not just a place of confinement, but a living laboratory. There are unconfirmed reports of medical organizations secretly testing new drugs and vaccines on these orphans, children who had no protectors, no identity records, and whom no one would come looking for if they disappeared. Locals living near the site of the former orphanage claim that even though the building has been abandoned and demolished, they still hear strange sounds in the dead of night. There are echoes of children's laughter that abruptly turn into choked sobs, and the sound of tiny footsteps pattering across the vacant land. Urban explorers who broke into the remaining basements captured blurry images of small handprints pressed into the walls with mud, as if they were clawing to find a way out of the eternal darkness. The truth about St. John's is a scar that may never heal. It reminds us that beneath the veil of holiness, education, monsters in human form, and sometimes thousands of children entered those doors some nameless numbers beneath the earth, stripped of both their right to live and their right to be remembered. Tonight, if you pass by a desolate plot of land that once housed such pain, listen closely, for the souls of St. John's are still whispering the stories of their short, agonizing lives, pleading for the recognition the world has owed them for far too long. Story 8. The Bloodlust of the Invisible. Tiago Henrique Gomes da Rocha. In the city of Goiânia, Brazil, during the early 2000s, a paralyzing terror gripped the streets as soon as the sun dipped below the horizon. Rumors spread among the citizens about a ghost on a motorcycle, a killer who needed no motive, sought no money, and seemed to vanish into the night immediately after striking. This was no urban legend. It was the flesh and blood reality of Tiago Henrique Gomes da Rocha, a man who would later be named one of the most prolific serial killers in modern history. Tiago did not start out as an outcast. He was a security guard, a man whose appearance was mild-mannered, polite, and professional. But behind that neat uniform lay a soul torn apart by a hunger he described as irresistible. Tiago would spend his nights cruising the streets of his motorcycle, his face hidden behind the dark. Once he selected a target, be it a homeless man sleeping soundly, a student waiting for a bus, or a young woman walking home, he would pull up close and bark, "This is a robbery!" to freeze the victim in fear. Then, without hesitation, he would fire a single, precise shot into their heart. He never took a single cent. The only thing he craved was the victim's final breath. The true horror lay in the absolute randomness of his choices. He told police that whenever he felt anxious or pressured, a voice in his head would rise, urging him to release the tension. After every pull of the trigger, he felt a strange relief, a fleeting sense of peace before the bloodlust returned. Among his 39 confirmed victims were girls as young as 14, and elderly people on the way to defend themselves. Tiago did not discriminate. To him, every human life was merely a dose of painkiller for his own fractured mind. Brazil police struggled for a long time to connect the case, though there was no discernible link between the victims. It was only when security cameras captured his license plate and DNA evidence began to arrive that the mask of the dedicated security guard finally slipped. Upon his arrest, Tiago showed no remorse. He calmly recounted the details of each murder as if describing mundane daily chores. He even demanded to be called the Naked Killer, a nickname he gave himself despite always being clothed during his crimes, revealing a desperate yearning for infamy for his atrocities. Today, Tiago is serving a life sentence with a total penalty reaching hundreds of years. However, his story has left a deep, jagged wound in the heart of Brazilian society that raises up chilling question. How many other Tiagos are currently standing guard at buildings, smiling at us every morning, while secretly nursing a monster waiting for the darkness to wake? The truth of Tiago Rocha is proof that devils do not come from hell with horns and tails. They often wear helmets, ride motorcycles, and hide within the terrifying noise of everyday life. Story 9. Vanished into the void. The lost flight of Flying Tiger. 739. Amidst the heightened tensions of the Cold War in 1962, one of the greatest aviation mysteries of all time unfolded in the skies over the Pacific Ocean, leaving behind a massive question mark that remains unanswered to this day. Flying Tiger Line Flight 739, a Lockheed L-1049 Super Constellation chartered by the U.S. military to transport over 100 elite soldiers from California to South Vietnam, suddenly vanished from radar without leaving the slightest trace. The night sky was reported to be perfectly clear, providing ideal flying conditions. The aircraft had just stopped to refuel in Guam and was en route to Clark Air Base in the Philippines. The pilots were seasoned veterans, and the communication systems were functioning flawlessly just minutes before the tragedy struck. At 1:30 a.m., a routine position report was transmitted to the ground. There was no Mayday call, no distress signal, and no mention of mechanical failure. Yet, seconds later, Flying Tiger 739 and the 107 souls on board evaporated from existence. What followed was the largest search and rescue operation in maritime and aviation history at that time. Hundreds of ships and aircraft scoured over 200,000 square miles of the Pacific Ocean for 8 days and nights. However, the result was a chilling zero. No wreckage was discovered, no oil slicks were spotted, no life jackets were found, and not a single body ever drifted ashore. The massive aircraft seemed to have been plucked out of reality by an invisible hand. The only anomaly recorded was a report from an Italian oil tanker sailing in the area. The crew claimed to have witnessed a horrific explosion in the sky, creating 2 blinding streaks of light that fell into the sea. But even if there had been an explosion, the failure to find any debris on the calm sea surface remains a physical absurdity. This has given rise to countless dark theories. Some speculate the plane was struck by a secret weapon being tested, or even abducted by extraterrestrial forces. Another, more grounded but equally chilling theory suggests sabotage by enemy agents, given that this was a classified mission carrying high-value military personnel. The agony of the victims' families was compounded by the fact that the U.S. government could never provide a final conclusion. The names of the 93 American soldiers on that flight were not even engraved on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall in Washington, as they had not officially entered the combat zone. Flying Tiger 739 became a ghost in military history. Those young men left to serve their country, only to vanish into the vast ocean, leaving behind mothers and wives waiting for an answer that may never come. To this day, the Pacific Ocean keeps the secret of Flight 739, a reminder that there are still dark voids in this world that even the most advanced human technology cannot reach. Story 10, The Dancing Coffins, the mystery of the Chase Vault. At the Christchurch Cemetery on the beautiful island of Barbados, early 19th century, a bizarre series of events unfolded, defying the laws of physics, challenging human belief. This mystery of the Chase Vault, a place where the dead seemingly refused to rest in peace. The Chase Vault was a sturdy structure built of coral stone and mortar, with an entrance blocked by a massive stone slab so heavy it required several men to move. The strangeness began in 1812 when the family opened the vault to bury Thomas Chase. As the slab was pushed aside, those present recoiled in horror. All the coffins inside, which had been neatly arranged previously, had been tossed from their positions, lying scattered across the floor as if they had been through a violent struggle. Initially, grave robbers were suspected. However, the logic failed. No jewelry or valuables had been stolen, and the exterior seal of the stone slab remained perfectly intact, with no signs of tampering. After rearranging everything, the vault was resealed and carefully plastered with lime. Yet every time the vault was opened, you personal signet ring with a pressed seal and fresh mortar around the door. A year later, before thousands of curious onlookers, the governor ordered the vault open one last time. The seals were unbroken, and the mortar showed no cracks. But when the door swung open, the stench of death wafted out, and the coffins were once again in total disarray. Most terrifyingly, the fine sand on the floor remained perfectly smooth, without a single footprint from man or beast. Many theories have been proposed, from localized earthquakes and rising groundwater to strange magnetic forces. However, scientific reports from that era confirmed no tremors were recorded on the island. The vault was completely dry, no signs of flooding. Spiritualists claim the souls of the Chase family were restless, or that the vault was haunted by an ancient curse from the island's enslaved people. Ultimately, consumed by fear, the family decided to relocate all the bodies and bury them in individual graves underground. The Chase vault has remained empty ever since, standing like a hollow eye socket in the middle of the cemetery. Desolate and shrouded in mystery. The story of the dancing coffins remains one of the world's most famous poltergeist cases, a testament to the idea that sometimes even death cannot bring absolute silence. Thank you for listening to this series. Please like and subscribe to the channel to hear the next series.